Vice President J.D. Vance and Second Lady Usha Vance are set next month to attend the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics, partly as a diplomatic move and partly to shop for new countries to threaten.
Oh, isn't that hilarious? Which countries are we threatening again? What is that? Iran and Putin's Russia and Xi Jinping's China, maybe a little North Korea. The Democrat Party, they're on the side of Hamas and Putin and Xi. I just like to say Xi. Xi? Yeah, that's what we go with. Well, a very happy hump day to you. Very good Wednesday to all of us across our wonderful land, the United States of America, the greatest, the most powerful. And even though we don't necessarily want to be the most powerful country in the world, somebody's got to be. What's it going to be? France? Great Britain? Great Britain's military is somewhere in the wheelhouse of the North Dakota National Guard at this point in history. France, as everyone knows, they sent, 15 troops to Greenland. It's the surrender team. They just go in there and teach them how to surrender to whatever country comes along. Amazing stuff. The Democrat Party, you see them attacking a Jewish comedian in New York to the point where the mob forming outside brought on the NYPD, that's the New York Police Department, and they canceled the show because you can't have Jews doing comedy in New York. What would happen then? We've never seen that before. So they canceled the comedy show. He's an Israeli man. And they're angry because he served in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, which is, of course, mandatory in Israel for everyone. So if anybody shows up in New York City who's Israeli, then the left-wing mob of armband-wearing, goose-stepping, the Nazi party, they actually called themselves the Socialist Workers' Party of Germany, just in case you got your history lessons from the Ivy League and you have no idea what was going on with the Nazis. But we've got that, and if that's not good enough, in Illinois, you see that Jerry Seinfeld. You may know him from the TV show Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld was going to do a comedy routine, and the left, the Democrat Party, they assembled and they became a mob, and you'll never guess what happened next. Jerry Seinfeld in Illinois, an Israeli stand-up comedian in Manhattan. And who is out there being the Nazi party? None other than the Democrat Party, who go around calling everybody Nazis and fascists, and they firebomb the Jewish governor's mansion in Pennsylvania, and they firebomb a pro-Israel march in Colorado, which is a different place altogether. Democrat Party, remarkable things. They've got, they're not on the side of civilization. They are the left. The left, I'm telling you, that's who I'm talking about. Truly remarkable stuff. And there's more. There's even more because it gets crazier. The Democrats, who are they accusing now? Let's see. Are you a Jewish double agent, an Israeli double agent? Have you heard about this one? This is a good one. They've brought back McCarthyism, but just to target the Jews, because, the Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler lives on and on. Remarkable things, these guys. And so I've got that coming up. Really amazing stuff. If you're Jewish, the Democrat Party, they're not your friends. They're not your friends. And if you're a Jewish Democrat, then you need to talk to somebody. You can talk to me if you'd like. I could explain it to you. We're at 888-630-9625. President Trump now in Davos, for the internationalists, the globalists gathering, their annual gathering in Davos, which is in Switzerland. It's a beautiful ski resort. And how many private jets every year we hear about how many private jets are there. Normally, historically, they've gone into Davos to talk about the weather, the climate change, and how they're going to fix it. And it's always been monumentally absurd, ridiculous. And the Democrats, there are representatives to Davos normally. They go in and they say, Republicans are making the weather bad in the world, and brown people are suffering. It's the usual left-wing stuff. Then they kill everybody. They're the left, pretty. But President Trump, after some major hiccups, I've got to say, no big deal. Air Force One just broke in flight, left Andrews, Joint Base Andrews Air Force Base last night, made it about as far as Long Island, New York, and say, hey, we got a big electrical problem here. We've got to go back to Andrews. So they turned around, came back to Andrews, put the president and his traveling party on different airplanes, and flew to Davos. And President Trump giving him a bit of what for in Davos, because he doesn't mince words, does he? He doesn't mince words. So we've got that, the president in Davos. And the headlines, Time magazine, Trump to address Davos amid Greenland standoff. Because there's a standoff over Greenland. And the Democrat Party, you know what they're doing? Defending colonialism. They love the colonial powers and their ownership of land masses in North America that go back centuries and centuries. And the Democrats, they live in the land of slavery in the 1800s in the United States, centuries ago, when the Democrats were in charge of plantations and slavery and bullwhips and Robert Mapplethorpe and all that stuff. But remarkable things. And now they're supporting colonialism as long as it's the Danish who do those breakfast tarts. And the Danish, they own Greenland because of colonialism. And now the Democrats want to defend colonialism, centuries-old colonialism. They really don't like it in the modern world. They're not good in the 21st century. Remarkable. But as I mentioned, Europe-bound Air Force One lands back in U.S. after turning around. Well, of course it'd have to turn around. I mean, well, it's kind of a silly headline from the left-wing dimwits at Mediaite. Naturally, it's out over the Atlantic, and it had to turn around. How else could it land back at Andrews? Stupid. You might put in the headline that it was reportedly, at least, some kind of an electrical problem aboard the, a 35-year-old airplane. We've got old airplanes. We're waiting for delivery of the new Air Force Ones, but there were multi-billion-dollar holdups, and President Trump was having none of that. A guy who used to own his own airline and knows a thing or two about airplanes. He owns his own 757 as his private plane. Who doesn't? Remarkable things going on here. And you may remember I pulled this headline because it's fun from NBC Fake News. Remember NBC? They used to be a news organization. Now they're something else altogether. But I went and I pulled this story from when is it now? It's from, a couple of years ago when President Trump was at NATO, a NATO summit, and they decided that his nickname was Daddy, that they called him Daddy because the United States is Daddy and they're all a bunch of kids whose wrists are strung together, walking along the sidewalk, going for pudding. The European allies who never paid their fair share. Remember Barack Obama and his pay your fair share stuff. And then President Trump said, hey, NATO countries, how about you guys pay what you committed to pay by treaty? And then they started paying a lot more, made NATO a lot stronger. And the Secretary General of NATO said that hey, the United States, Donald Trump, he's daddy. He's daddy to the world leaders because they're not so good. But it's good stuff. Oh, and you see MS-13 DNC. Yeah, NATO chief, here's the headline. NATO chief calls Trump daddy. Hey, daddy, somebody's got to pay for dinner, pick up the check when everybody gets up and walks away from the table. That's the United States. We're daddy. And they just say, well, screwed. We're going to, throw grapes in the back of our throats, and we're going to create a social welfare state that they can afford because we pay for their defense against the Soviet Union and Russia and China and never in the radical Islamic jihadis, but then so we're daddy. But then, like daddy, you take a bit of grief from the squirts, the people. Yeah, NATO chief calls Trump daddy. That's a lot of fun. It was just last year. It was June of 2025. UN Secretary General Mark Rutte surprised reporters Wednesday, this is last year now, by calling President Donald Trump daddy in a moment of levity at a serious NATO summit. It was a lot of levity. Is that anti-Semitic to say levity? I'm not sure. Also, the Trump administration is starting rounding up illegal aliens in Maine Turns out Maine has more Somalis than your average place, almost any place outside of Somalia. And lots of them because Democrats say, hey, Somalis, they probably like Minnesota in the wintertime and Maine, since they come from, the land of the sand beetle. Maybe they'd like that. Be a lot better for them. But ICE arrests 50 in Maine, as DHS launches Operation Catch of the Day. Catch of the Day. I saw that and I said, Catch of the Day, that they're going to say, the Trump administration is calling Somalis fish. They're comparing them to fish. They're the catch of the day because, they got a lot of fish up there in Maine, do a lot of fishing. They got cod and lobster and things like that. So 50 illegal aliens in Maine, just scratching the surface there. Isn't that amazing? And again, the Democrats, they hate comedy and they hate Jews. Which they hate more? Michael, it's hard to say. NYPD, this is the Jewish edition, writing the story because the New York Times doesn't care. Even their Jews are anti-Semites at the New York Times. They're anti-Israel. Me, I'm a Zionist. I'm an Irish Catholic Zionist. And Basque, Basque Catholic, Irish Catholic, Zionist. But here's the headline. And the headline is NYPD cancels stand-up comic guy. His name is Guy Huckman. Guy Huckman show, fearing Arab demonstrators. And they're most of them not even Arabs. They're just white liberals that live in New York City. And they formed a mob outside of the nice place where he was going to be doing his stand-up comedy. But it was canceled because he's a Jew. And the Democrats, they don't support Jews or Judaism or Israel or anything like that. And it turns out Guy Huckman, because he's Israeli, he served in the IDF, which is mandatory, by the way. We should make it mandatory that Democrats serve in the IDF. And we'll send them into Gaza and unarmed, I think, and let them see if they can do a social worker thing on them like that. So we've got that NYPD, the New York police came in to cancel a stand-up comic. This goes back to Lenny Bruce for using vulgarity in the 1950s, doing stand-up in Greenwich Village. And the Democrats are still complaining about that, still making TV shows and movies about the tragedy that was, stepping on comedy from Lenny Bruce because he's controversial. And now here comes an Israeli in 2026 to New York City, and mobs of Democrats are out there being fascists and anti-free speech and anti-Semitic and anti-Israel and all that. But it doesn't end there because Jerry Seinfeld, one of the most benign comics in the history of the world, I don't think he's ever cursed on stage or off stage, and he's not controversial. But he showed up to do a comedy routine in Illinois, and you'll never believe what happened. The Democrat Party, a gang of lefties showed up. And you know what happened? A big problem for Jerry Seinfeld. You can't have Jerry Seinfeld telling jokes in Illinois. Come on. What do you think is going on here? This is not America or anything like that. This is Democrat Party land. But Jerry Seinfeld, isn't that amazing? And the headline there, low-life, terrorist-loving scum came to harass comedian Jerry Seinfeld outside of a show in Aurora, Illinois. Aurora, Illinois. And there they are. Why? Why? Because he's Jewish. That's why. And we were talking yesterday about, the fact the Democrats should be wearing armbands at this point and brown shirts or black shirts, whatever color they want to wear. But they should have color-coded shirts and they should be wearing armbands because they're goose-stepping anti-Semites. They're the mainstream of the Democrat Party. Isn't that amazing? Remember them with Charlie Kirk assassinated, and millions of Democrats cheered, even though they had never heard a word that he had said. They love murder. They love death. They're not on our side. Yeah, so the low-life, terrorist-loving scum came to harass comedian Jerry Seinfeld at a show in Aurora, Illinois. NYPD cancels stand-up comic Guy Huckman, an Israeli stand-up comic in New York City, fearing Arab demonstrators. That is to say, the pro-Hamas mob outside. And this is the Democrat Party. Make no mistake about it. What is the word, Michael? fascists. Oh, well, no, I meant to say Democrats. I mean fascists. I mean Democrats. And it's all okay with them. Aren't they amazing? 888-630-9625. President Trump flew the backup Air Force One to Davos, Switzerland overnight. And he has landed there for the World Economic Forum that the left loves so much. They love to talk about the weather. And President Trump addressing the assembled globalists, the internationalists. And President Trump, no holds barred, as usual. He gives them the Europeans, our allies who President Trump compelled to pay their fair share into NATO because they just stuck us with the bill since 1947, but pay no attention to that. President Trump this morning in Davos, Switzerland.
It's great to be back in beautiful Davos, Switzerland, and to address so many respected business leaders, so many friends, few enemies.
A few enemies, and they all laughed, addressing friends in Davos and a few enemies. And everybody laughed because, he delivers stuff like it's a punchline all over the place, and he's funny. And if they're behaving like upstarts, then President Trump isn't going to hold back. He may not be the most diplomatic president of the United States in the history of the world, but on the other hand, a little tough love for our junior partners in the world is a good thing now and then.
Certain places in Europe are not even recognizable, frankly, anymore. They're not recognizable. And we can argue about it, but there's no argument. Friends come back from different places. I don't want to insult anybody and say I don't recognize it. And that's not in a positive way. That's in a very negative way. And I love Europe, and I want to see Europe go good. But it's not heading in the right direction.
London, Paris, which known as Londonistan, and Paris has no-go zones that have become hotbeds of radical Islamic jihad, where they have Sharia law in certain neighborhoods, and the police can't go there, and firefighters can't go there, and visitors to Paris can't go there because the jihad rules the roost in parts of Paris and beyond Paris and France as well. And in Great Britain, of course, the number one name for a newborn boy is Mohammed, and the number two name for a newborn boy in the United Kingdom is Mohammed by a different spelling. Isn't that amazing? And so President Trump is saying it out loud, which is good because we should say it out loud because it's true. Remember the truth? The truth is good. Telling the truth is good. Very, very good. Telling the truth about the Democrat Party is a good thing. As the Democrat Party targets Jerry Seinfeld and a Jewish comedian in New York, what's up with them? So what is President Trump called Greenland Iceland? He accidentally called Greenland. It wouldn't be the first time that happened, Iceland is more green and Greenland is more ice, and they're kind of neighbors side by side. But that'll be a big deal. That'll be a big MS-13 talking point, won't it? Before we get on with the news of the day, and as usual, there is an abundance of said news, thanks to the mental illness known as the Democrat Party. Let's go to the telephones first, though. Let's go to Mark, calling from Jasper, Tennessee. Marcus, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, love what you do every day.
Thank you, Mark.
You're laughing as I'm traveling the roads.
Thank you very much.
Two things.
Huh?
Can you imagine if Ben Shapiro went to Dearborn and went into one of their mosque service and did what they did in that Christian church? It'd be George Floyd all over again.
100% right. Mark, were it not for double standards, liberals would have no standards at all. And you're right. They would protect a radical Islamic mosque with their bodies, with their lives, because they love the jihad and they hate the Jews. Apparently, Jerry Seinfeld is too much for them now. He's a genocide-loving Zionist, according to the Democrat Party, and they protest Jerry Seinfeld concerts in Illinois, and not even in Chicago. And and you're right, if Ben Shapiro took a group of conservatives and went into a mosque and they might even defend a synagogue, although at this point that's questionable. But certainly a mosque, and the more radical the mosque, the more the Democrat Party would like it. But yes, if Ben Shapiro, let's just look at the other side of the coin and ask what the Democrats would do then. And you're absolutely right, Mark. We should expect violence and mayhem and rioting and arson and looting because that's that's the signature behavior of the Democrat Party today.
Absolutely. And quickly, the second point is all the stuff that's happening in Minneapolis and the other cities. God forbid, I'm not wanting this to happen, but if it happens to one of their close friends or family members, then they would want change.
I'm not even sure about that anymore because their regard for human life is not in evidence anywhere these days, and they fight for everything from harvesting the organs of 40% of the unborn black population to, it's true. George Floyd, a career criminal, a junkie with fentanyl and methamphetamine in his system while resisting arrest after committing felony counterfeit offenses and a long list of crimes that he's committed in his life. Then he died of cardiac failure. And they put the police officer in prison. And once in prison, Derek Chauvin was stabbed 22 times by a Democrat. The police officer was. The Democrat Party is not on the side of good. They're not on the side of life. They are on the side of evil and on the side of death. That's just my assessment, though, Mark.
You're absolutely right. And by the way, I know you got to go, but I'm looking forward to buying you a drink this summer on the cruise. Can't wait.
Oh, no kidding. Is that right? Outstanding. Yep. That is outstanding.
We're very excited to get on there and meet you.
That is great to hear, Mark. That's wonderful. That's great. You're coming from Jasper, Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
That's wonderful. All right, I'm looking forward to. I'll buy the drinks. The drinks are all included every. I think you knew that, Ben. That's great stuff, Mark. Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Same here. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. See you in Trieste. We launch from Trieste. Isn't that great? On one of the world's most beautiful ships. New, beautiful, just an extraordinary ship. It's going to be a great trip. Isn't that amazing? The Democrat Party, they're nuts. And Mark is 100% correct. Imagine Ben Shapiro takes a group of conservatives and goes to a mosque on Friday. It's Friday is the Muslim equivalent of Sunday. You got to attend mosque Friday evenings. And if Ben Shapiro and a bunch of Jews, God forbid, invaded a mosque during services on Friday and disrupted the event, the news media would be beside themselves. They'd be out because they're the Democrat Party, and they represent the violent mob. They're the violent mob people. You know how they are. Yes, indeed. Now, listen, President Trump began in Davos, Switzerland, for the big World Economic Forum, an annual event in Davos. And I haven't seen the count. I haven't gone to look for it, though, because normally they go in there, they talk about global warming, right, and how they're going to change the weather and the climate of the earth. But all they have to do is steal all your money and your freedom, and then they can make the weather better, is what they've been claiming for years and years now. But they used to go there to talk about the weather and lie about how they're going to make the weather better all over the world, and there'd be no more hurricanes and everything's a lie, just insane, mentally ill lies that they tell. But when they go to talk about climate change and how everybody has to stop polluting, they all fly there in their private jets. And there's usually a head count of private jets in Davos when they have this gathering. And 164 private jets, and there are only 130 people attending the summit. But they all come in their own private jets. And Al Gore is there, and John Kerry is there, and they all have their private jets. And then they complain that you drive a 4-cylinder automobile and you're the problem. And if you drive an SUV, then you're making the weather bad. But they fly around in Gulfstream jets everywhere they go, and that usually belong to somebody else. And they're not the problem. You are. Well, this year nobody's talking about the private jets, and maybe that's because they're not talking about the weather anymore. Now they're talking about Trump. Trump is the new global warming, I think. And what are they going to do about that? Well, and what they're plotting to do is another thing. But I got the fact that Air Force One broke down en route is kind of an interesting story starter there, isn't it? Because President Trump, I was just say, being the head of a security detail would be a challenging job to have. I would say, because and the Democrat Party, they're anti-law enforcement, they're anti-ICE, they're pro-illegal alien, they're pro-illegal alien gang member, child rapist, murderer. They're the Democrat Party. They're really not on the side of good, not on the side of good at all. Man, oh man, oh man. We're expecting that in every Wednesday morning, I go on the radio with the great and fun people at WLS in Chicago doing the morning show there. And every Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. in Chicago, 7 a.m. here on the East Coast, I go and talk to the wonderful people, the morning show people. And we're talking about how in Chicago this weekend, they're predicting with the wind chill, it's going to be 30 degrees below zero for most of the weekend, 30 degrees below zero. And they may get some snow. It might be too cold to snow. And in Washington, D.C., the local Channel 7, the local ABC affiliate in Washington, D.C., I went and I looked at their weather. Today. And they're predicting snow in Washington, D.C., and the nice weather lady there last night, she said that the snow total trends for the Washington, D.C. area, and they're saying that Sunday into Monday, we're looking at a lot of snow. And they have all these different models, the Euro model, the European model, the GEFS model, the GFS model, the NBM model, and they're predicting between 16.4 inches of snow on the short end, on the lowest end for our snow, 16.4 inches of snow in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area on Sunday and Monday, 16.4 up to 20 inches, 20.4 inches of snow. That's what they're saying. And I always like to remind people, it's never too early to panic. It's never too early to panic. And it's time this morning, I think, to get to the grocery store to buy all of your white products, because when it snows, everybody needs, what do we need, Mike? We need toilet paper and paper towels. We need milk. What else we need? Bread. We need bread, white bread. I don't know. I haven't bought like white bread in, I think maybe ever, perhaps ever, white bread. But you're supposed to buy white bread because it's snowing, and I don't know, Wonder Bread, and get some peanut butter and jelly because you never know. But they are talking about massive across the Midwest, particularly the northern Midwest and the Northeast, talking about maybe several inches of ice falling that could go on power lines, and then entire cities will be blacked out. And I heard this morning they're saying we're talking about the kind of blackout that could last not days, not weeks, but a month. They're saying a blackout. And I'm like, really? That'd be really unusual. I guess the Democrats are in charge. We're going to be without electricity forever because they're, the old line that what did Democrats use to light their homes before candles? And the answer is electricity, because they're, anti-progressive. But they're saying that the ice that this storm drops could be so heavy that it would cause blackouts that Donald Trump would say that like the world has never seen, like we've never seen before. And the projections are all over the place, at least for the Washington metropolitan area. We're kind of on the edge of of where the big blob is coming on the map. And the different colors and all that stuff. But they panic about everything and they freak out about everything, and I don't typically believe them. However, I do have to say Washington, D.C. is at its most charming after it's been brought to its knees by a snowstorm, because it's the only time you'll see people in Washington, D.C. Nod to each other on the sidewalk and say hello. It's the only time. Years and years go by. Nobody says hello. Then a big snowstorm hits, and people, for a minute at least, say hello and make a pleasant face, isn't it? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Don't forget about eggs. God, can't forget about eggs. Got to have eggs, too. Got to have eggs and milk. And also, by the way, when you get your milk, make it whole milk. Because you see that it's like Woody Allen in the movie Sleeper, right? Where now everybody say, because got this member of the Kennedy family, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Bobby Kennedy Jr., at HHS, Health and Human Services, and he said, well, we're trying to eat better, and it turns out 2% low-fat milk doesn't have the nutrients you need, and you really need the fat that whole milk has to keep you healthy, and the nutrients and vitamin D and all that good stuff, so you should have whole milk. You should have whole milk and not 2% milk. I had a bowl of Cheerios this morning with milk. I think it was 2% because we haven't caught up yet. And blueberries, Cheerios and blueberries with milk this morning. But I think we're going to have to get whole milk when we go out to the store for this. I think my best girl is going to the grocery store today. She was joking about it this morning. But I think she's going to go to the store. And you got to get eggs because they're white, and you have, what else do you have to get? You got to get eggs and milk and water. Maybe get some half and half because that's good too. Toilet paper. I don't drink coffee, so I don't need that, but my best girl does. And again, it's never too early to panic. And now that whole milk is back, and Michael Piercy and I were talking about this last week. Now it's like, hey, remember we told you for 40 years that you shouldn't drink whole milk because it's terrible for you. And now from the highest level of the U.S. government, the instructions are, oh, no, whole milk is the best thing for you. And Michael and I were talking about this last week, and I said, well, it reminds me of Woody Allen in one of his earlier, funnier movies, Sleeper, when Woody Allen was a character that was in a coma for 200 years, and then he woke up from his coma, and his 200-year-old Volkswagen Beetle started right up. And there's a doctor there when he woke up from 200 years in a coma. There's a doctor right there, and the doctor tells him this.
Here, you smoke this, and be sure you get the smoke deep down into your lungs.
I don't smoke.
It's tobacco. It's one of the healthiest things for your body. Now go ahead. You need all the strength you can get.
That's right. You need all the strength here. Wakes up after 200 years in a coma. The doctor insists that he start smoking cigarettes because it's the best thing for you. And now whole milk is once again the best thing for you as well. So when you go to the grocery store in a panic to buy white products and eggs and toilet paper and paper towels and get coffee if you'd like and all that stuff, but be sure to get whole milk and not 2% milk. I think your Cheerios will be much tastier in the morning. Isn't that great? Yes, Woody Allen. And back when he was funny, before he was a known child molester and all that. Look, he's not, we don't call him a child molester. We just call him a Democrat. We just call him a Hollywood liberal.
Right, I'm a bigot, but for the left.
That's right. I'm a bigot, Woody Allen family. Right, I'm a bigot, but for the left. So it's okay. Woody Allen knew this stuff back in the 1970s, which is 50 years ago now, just by the way. But isn't that amazing? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Davos. Don't you want to go to Davos on your private jet and hang out with... I'm thinking there's a lot of monkeypox being spread there, too. What do you think? I think so. Yes, sir. All right, let's see. Well, let's go back to the telephones. Let's go to Philip, calling from the great state of Georgia. Philip, you are on the Chris Plant Show.
Chris, thank you so much for taking my call. I thoroughly enjoy you making my morning so happy. Thank you so much for that. I was just talking to your phone screener, and I said, what a great thing to do this weekend. This weather's coming in. Everybody's going to be cold. If I could be crowd control person for just one weekend, I would choose this weekend. I would get me 2 or 3 big water cannons, and I would just open the gate up there on all the protesters in front of the ice facilities and just turn every one of them into a human snowman. You can go up there and put little hats on them, put little eyes of coal and a corn cob pipe. You wouldn't really have to chase them. They'd be frozen stiff right there. It'd be easy to catch them.
I think the corn cob pipe is a nice image, and I was thinking about that when you're describing. You got to the eyes of coal, and I was thinking you got to have the $5 corn cob pipe from the drugstore down the street. And you're 100% right. I've been wanting to bring in the fire trucks from the airports, with the water cannons on the roof of the of the fire trucks.
Yeah.
Right? And, get one of those fire trucks with the water cannons on each side of the protest and give them a good spraying down. And the firemen, everybody loves firemen, can be up on the roof of the truck waving and smiling, and it's like Christmas. And they could turn it'd turn into a frozen mist as it lands on them, and it'd be a great deal of fun. And if you aim it down at them, you could knock them off their feet and push them across the intersection with the fire hoses on the big water cannons on the roof. And then they'd have to. It'd be good also for them, Philip, because it would clean them.
Absolutely. I mean, look at all the benefits, and you wouldn't even have to charge them for all this. It'll be all done for free, and I think it'll be a good thing. Democrats like free stuff. Why don't we just give them this for free stuff?
That is, I hadn't even put that in there, and you're 100% right. It's free of charge to them because what do they care? And the taxpayers funded, and they get a bath. They get a bath in the thing, and then we could set up people with scrub brushes on sticks, on broom handles, and when they leave, we could scrub them down a little bit. I think that'd be fun. Yeah, and 30 degrees below zero with the wind chill in Chicago this weekend. This is perfect. Perfect idea. Philip, you need to run for office. You should get Hank Johnson's job. You don't live in Hank Johnson's congressional district, do you?
No.
No. He wants us to imagine a world without balloons. And he thinks islands in the Pacific will flip over if there are too many people on one side of the island. A genius. Keep sending him back to Washington. Yes. Yeah, RFK and the whole milk thing as you rush to the grocery store. RFK Jr., a Democrat, and his advocacy for bringing back full-fat dairy, especially whole milk, into school meals and general dietary guidelines, challenging decades of low-fat recommendations due to evolving nutritional science, suggesting dairy fat isn't inherently harmful and offers benefits like essential fats for brain development. I always drank a lot of milk growing up, and I'd like to think my brain developed reasonably well. RFK's push, supported by bipartisan legislation, the Whole Milk and Healthy Kids Act, aims to end the attack on whole milk. It's an attack on whole milk. This must not stand. Aligns with the Make America Healthy Again movement. That's MAHA.